Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. Almost 20 years ago, I met someone who has been instrumental in changing the trajectory of not only my health and my family's health, but he has also changed mindsets. I've been blessed to have two people in my life who have continually modeled the question, what is possible? And have demonstrated to me how I can apply that in my life. That approach to life is not limited to only physical things and comes with a mindset few ever consider. I came to Jay seeking help for one of my children and stepped into a world I never imagined. His system is not just for the elite athletes he has trained, but for all human beings. It's to give everyone the opportunity to live as the miracle we are all gifted by birth. Some choose to apply it to sport, some choose to apply it to normal daily activities. It is for those of any age. When I met Jay, I had been working in the personal fitness field and was performing as a strength athlete for over 20 years, and I thought I knew fitness. I didn't. Not only did I have to learn new things, but unlearn so much. My hope for today's podcast is that you can have ears to hear what is being discussed. It can change your life for the better, as it did mine. Welcome, Jay Schroeder.
Hey, thanks, Russell. How are you today?
I'm just wonderful. It's a beautiful day in South Carolina.
Yeah, same here in Arizona. I'm sitting outside. It's 90 degrees. It's 7 in the morning.
Nice. So, all right. So, we're going to have to admit that you were not originally from Arizona. Where you grew
Correct.
up? I kind of remember you talking about being a Jersey boy at one point.
No, upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was like, how many years did you spend up there?
Until, when I was in 7th grade, my father was a truck driver, and we actually lived in Binghamton. And his terminal moved 60 miles across the border into Pennsylvania, into Scranton. So we ended up moving to Scranton when I was in 7th grade. And then just before my senior year, my dad had a series of heart attacks, and the union wasn't going to let him drive anymore. So he had to change, obviously, his career. So we had a family vote, and we decided to move to Arizona so he could start all over again, and we could start all over with him. That was in, 1972.
Oh, all right. You've been out there a while then, for sure.
Oh yeah, 52 years. I'm
Yeah.
like from here.
Yes, sir. Now, okay, so growing up, big family, or
I had 3 brothers.
3 brothers?
Yeah.
And so sports was part of it, I'm assuming, yes?
Yeah. My dad played on semi-pro teams for football. One of them that became the New York Giants, and I had some other friends of his that became the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was all when they had the cardboard helmets. And
Yes, sir.
My dad broke his nose, 7 times in 1 year, and he said, well, there's no future in football. He didn't want to go through that anymore.
Yeah.
But I ended up, the high school I went to was large, and you could only pick one sport to play. And I ended up picking football, obviously, because of my dad.
Okay. And then I mean, were there big dreams with sports or
You
coming out of high
know,
school?
yeah, when I started playing, I thought, yeah, I want to play in the NFL someday. And then as I got growing and going through life more, it become less and less of a goal. Football was fun, and I didn't want that to be ruined. And ultimately, you see, I like to think, I like to be alone, um, creating things, putting the pen to paper, and then implementing them in whatever the area may be. You know, it could be, now it's training, but it could have been to everything and anything. And so ultimately, I wanted to be a truck driver, like my dad, over the road where I could think and I could tow my race car or motorcycles with me and I could race. And that's ultimately what I wanted to do. Still to this day, I'm 69 and I'm still thinking, I could still get my license and go drive truck. I mean, I know how. My dad taught me when I was 7. My dad taught me how to back up an 18 wheeler into the dock. And, I used to drive Friday nights. I used to go with him. And the last 30 miles home, I would drive.
The,
And so, I knew how to do
the sad thing in truck driving today is they have automatic transmissions in the new
that.
trucks.
Yeah, well,
I'm like, what a world we're in.
yeah,
Oh
you got
my
to make it
gosh.
simple. People don't understand a lot of things.
Oh gosh. So all right, so you get to college and that's when you had your injury? Well,
Actually, we moved out here. My parents moved out here as my senior year, and I stayed in Pennsylvania to play my senior year, and then came out here with them. So I really lost. I was a decent player. I wasn't great, but I was pretty darn good. And I got out here, and I had to finish at a local high school because I didn't have Arizona government, and they required one other class called civics. Otherwise, I had met and surpassed. I mean, the requirements in Pennsylvania were much greater than Arizona was, and but I had to go to school, and I went to school for 2 hours a day. And I asked the football coach if I could come out and practice because I knew I couldn't make the team with only taking 2 classes. He said sure. So I went out there and I was, what do they say, kicking ass, right? And they wanted to then hold me back a year so I could play. And I really didn't want to do that. And then when I decided to, it was too late. I had already been accredited for graduation. So I ended up going to Mesa Community College and playing there, and kind of got lost amongst the shuffle. At that time, Mesa Community was the hotbed for Arizona State recruits that either couldn't make ASU because of grades or some type of eligibility problem, so they moved him to the junior college. And there were 11 tailbacks in front of me. So, needless to say, that first year, I held the dummies and all the things that the scrubs do.
sure.
Second year, there were only 8 in front of me, and 5 ended up getting hurt in off-season practice, and these decided to have a tryout for the rest of us, and they put the ball on the 12-yard line and gave us each 3 plays to see how many times we could score. We all ran the exact same plays. We had the same line, playing against the same defense, and I scored each time, so I got the starting role and ended up starting. And I went to a small school, Baker University in Texas, NAIA. I think it was Division II at the time, but they're now Division I. I think I'm really not sure how they arrange it anymore. I was coming home from spring break, and that's when I got in my accident, and that kind of changed the world, changed the plans, made me truly wish I had been driving that truck instead of playing.
Yeah.
But as you know, it's one of those things where it's like what the heck did I do to deserve this? Why me? Why? You go through it when you feel sorry for yourself. I was injured and you know had paralyzed from nipples down, and it was very strange. To this day, I figured out, well, not at this day, but years before, I figured out the real injuries were head injuries. I broke my back and neck in 6 places in my back, 4 in my neck, but they weren't at any level that would really lead to permanent paralysis. But they didn't know in 1975, they had no clue what was going on. They put me in traction, and my parents couldn't afford the bill. The guy that ran over me was a college kid. Um, do you remember when used to, as a college kid, buy used books and then go to other universities and sell them and make your money and make a living doing that? Did you ever do that, Russell?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay.
No, I
Well,
didn't have
it's real
time.
popular, and the front of his car was loaded with books. He said he couldn't see me, you know. So whatever that was, but my family was responsible for the bills, and finally they sent me home and left me in traction at home. My mother had to get a job to help pay the bills, and at that time, I think she made 40 cents an hour.
Sure.
So, you know, worked in the credit department for Sears and Roebuck. She was a collector, but I had an osteopathic physician, and he told me I really have no idea, Jay, what the heck's going on, and I don't know what to do. Because I would have like periods where, and this was after the first couple months, so 2 months into it, I could wiggle my toes or I could do something, I could move something, and then I couldn't for days. Nothing would happen. So he gave me these training journals, and they were Soviet training journals, translated obviously, not in Russian because I don't read Russian. But he said, read these. I think they'll help you. You're a really smart kid, and I think you'll figure out something from these. Well, I ended up figuring something out after another 2.5, 3, 4 months of reading. And my dad set up a little shelf for me, and I had one of those pointers from school when they'd point to the chalkboard and stuff, and I would flip the pages with the pointer. And ended up having to read. I couldn't change the book out till my parents got home. So I ended up reading the same thing over and over and over. And I don't know what happened. Ultimately, it's God's plan. I wasn't good enough to go to the NFL and play or even play big time school or anything. But I kept trying, and he kept probably getting tired of saying, Jay, this isn't for you, and this is what happened to me. And it opened up a whole new world. And I had this little roller with prickly ends on it, and I put it behind my head. And I figured, well, what I gathered from this is if I could create pain, then I could also create movement. And so I started to try and create pain anywhere in my body. And the first place I created it was my left foot. And once I created it there, then I knew the next step I had to do was figure out how to get rid of it. And I would move this around my neck, around my head, different points on top, around the side, because I could press my head back against things really hard. Now, I couldn't raise my arm high enough to roll it because I could get about here with each arm, and that's about it. And so it would just move around, and the different parts of my head would create pain, discomfort in different areas. And then I started to manipulate how long I did it for, and then off and on, series, and getting rid of it. Once I did that, I learned to create pain anywhere in my body. As soon as I had 15, 20 locations, things started to move. And that's
Nice.
my story. That's where I ended up. That's why I do what I do today, from what I figured out at that time. So
So so you shifted though, once you're up and about, you shifted to powerlifting at one point?
I did a lot of different things because, to be honest, I was afraid that something would happen that I wouldn't move again, and I really didn't like that. You know, um,
Yeah.
eh, the whys. Well, those are personal reasons, but it wreaked a lot of havoc in my brain, we'll say, and I didn't want it to happen again. So I started to do a lot of different things. I rode bicycles, and I raced, criterium, and 25K, 40K bike races. I got into velodrome cycling because I just wanted to see, well, what can I do with all this stuff, you know? And anyhow, I ended up going back to school to play football. I went to my old coach at the community college and said, look, nobody's going to give me a scholarship anywhere because nobody thinks I should be doing anything. And he said, I've got a friend. He's going to a real small school and he'll take you on. And he did. I got a scholarship. And, at that time, scholarships were, they paid you money and got free schooling and free food and all that stuff. And once I left there, then I decided to do everything because I had a scare. I got hit straight in the head. I bent over and took a shot straight on the top of my head, and the same sensations came back for about a month and a half or so. And I got my way back, same thing that I did. And then, one thing led to another. I started riding bicycles, lifting weights, because you didn't lift weights when I was in school. They didn't allow it. Okay, you could sneak off and do some things, but ultimately they didn't allow it. So I began to play around, and one thing led to another. I got pretty strong, and found out that I could get faster. I was your basic slow guy. I ran a 4.999 downhill, uphill with a tailwind. Didn't matter. 4.99999. And I had a solid 23-inch vertical jump. So those things take you nowhere really fast. So I said to myself, you know what? If I could allow myself to move, I wonder if I could allow myself to move more efficiently. Well, I ended up running 4.340. I had a 43-inch vertical jump. I could stuff a basketball behind my head, and
Nice.
that's really when I started investigating. I tried it out on family,
Of course.
and friends, and one thing led to another. EVO then became EVO.
So at what point did you, get connected with like Reggie White?
Oh, those were after I trained Adam. I trained a lot of people, and then Adam Archuleta. My wife was a teacher, and she was very well respected, very well liked, and all the football coaches knew her because she taught the deaf, set up the whole sign language program in Arizona, worked with Gallaudet University, the deaf university, and she participated with the football coaches to interpret for the deaf players. And the head coach at her school ended up going to another local school, and that's where Adam happened to be playing. And Adam got into a lot of mischief, we'll just say. And he called Cindy and said, hey, is your husband still training kids and working with kids? Because I had the reputation of helping to create good citizens through training. People used to say, I don't care how strong little Johnny got or little Jane got. They're nicer in the family. They're a better community person. Those are the things that became really important with EVO. They're becoming respected. So he said, would your husband take on this kid I have? He might be good, he might not. I don't know. But right now I can't do anything with him because he's always, in mischief. And that's how I got started with Adam. And needless to say, Adam ended up being good for me, and I was good for Adam. Ended up getting a scholarship to Arizona State. He had 0 offers. No junior college even wanted him. And he ended up walking on at ASU. Next year, he earned a full scholarship. And one thing led to another, became the first-round draft pick in the NFL. And all of a sudden, Jay knew what he was doing.
Yeah, they did didn't they do an ESPN special?
Oh,
About
yeah,
that whole thing?
ESPN, USA Today, Philadelphia newspapers, New York newspapers, LA newspapers. There were articles in multiple periodicals, and yeah, there's a lot of good publicity came with that. And then, and when Adam got drafted, the coach of the Rams said, "Look, we want to pay you to consult with the Rams, but you are specifically going to take care of Adam. And that's what I did for a year and a half. And I ended up then obviously helping many other players because they came to me and asked. And then I got consulting jobs with multiple other teams: baseball, football, basketball. And I got to meet a lot of interesting, very cool people like Reggie White.
Hmm. Nice.
Yeah, yeah,
The Minister of Defense, I
yeah,
think
yeah.
you
He
called him.
was the
Yeah.
minister of a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, how we met, I think there's some real implications for kids and parents. Is uh, somewhere 20 years ago, uh, my youngest was in high school and getting hurt all the time, and I forget exactly how I got connected, but um, I ended up on the phone with you a couple of times uh, regarding uh, not just his training, but injuries and everything else. And you know, I've been on the planet even longer than you, and everybody's got a system, the perfect way. Success. I mean, advertising hasn't changed much over the years in terms of the promises that everybody makes. So, so you kind of you said, look, you said, just try this for 3 months. Have your son do this program for 3 months, and and you'll know whether my system works or not. So so I said, all right, my son, we started calling him the experiment. I guess it's better calling him the experiment than the accident, but we
There
call him
you go.
we call him the experiment. And so for 3 months, he was a wrestler and a baseball player, and for 3 months he did nothing else other than four exercises, and he did them 4 days a week, and we tested him before he started at the end of his sophomore year of high school. In the mile run, he ran a all out 6 minute 48-second mile.
Hmm.
And after that, we didn't that summer there was no run into the mailbox. And as a wrestler, the whole wrestler mentality, you got to do hill training, you got to do cardio.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, he was pretty apprehensive because he was a decent wrestler. And so at the end of that summer, beginning of a new school year, new school, they go out on the track, the new coach and everything, and he runs a 6 minute mile, 6 minutes flat, cut 48 seconds off of his mile within 3 months, not running at all. And then they did sprints, and traditionally he was the always the last one in the sprints. But there was a new kid on the team that was he was a track kid that was going to try out for wrestling. So he's the only one that my son couldn't beat in the sprints. He won every sprint, and he recovered so quickly from the mile run and the sprints. So he called me. He said, "Dad, I did a 6 minute flat mile." He said, I was so nervous. I think I could have went faster, but I was nervous. I never went that fast before." And he said, and so I'm trying to figure out, like, what happened in 3 months. Can you break that down for me, Jay? Let everybody know what occurred in that kid's body in 3 months.
Nothing really occurred in his body. Let me say this is the basic tenet of EVO. You see, we're all strong, we're all powerful, we're all fast, we're all explosive, we're all fit, we're all whatever it is that we want to display. It's already inside of us. That was given to us by birth, and that's part of the miracle of birth. And we mistreat ourselves. We eat inappropriately. We move inappropriately. We sleep inappropriately. We don't dream. We just mistreat ourselves in a multitude of areas. Sometimes every area. And as Evo, and this is what I found. Again, we'll just harken back to putting that little tool under my head and what was really being created there. It was just information going to my brain, and that information allowed my brain to understand what we're born with: reflex patterns, reflex arcs, the things, how we're supposed to move, how our systems are supposed to work, how our organs are supposed to respond to some type of stress, whatever it may be. And that's all we really do, is we try and find that key. Now, the key for you and the key for me and the key for everyone can be different, but we're all exactly the same. We have the same muscles in the same locations. They're innervated by the same nervous systems, fueled by the same energy systems. All of our muscles are located in the same place, and we're one. It doesn't matter if we're 6'5" or we're 5'10", we're 400 pounds, we're 130 pounds, we're male, we're female. It doesn't matter. We all have the same things to work with. And those are the things that are the finest that can allow us to be the greatest. But we start here when we're born, and then we do this. When you think back to when your kids were very young, and your grandchildren, they don't bend over to pick up something like you and I. They squat down and they do a perfect squat. Upper torso is erect, lower legs perpendicular. Everything is in line. And we're born with that. No one taught them to do that, because they weren't in the weight room, and you weren't even as much into all this as you are. You weren't going, "Hey Jay, you gotta keep your upper body erect. I can't let you pick that up unless you do this," right? They just did it. Now, if we can get back to that point, and that's the point that I reached when I was lying in bed, and I just took off on that and created everything I write is still based on all of that today. 50 whatever years later, it's still based on that exact same thing. Now, some people choose to do it, some people choose not to, because it makes evident every weakness, every flaw. And we all know we're flawed. Not everybody wants to admit it. You and I, as much as we may know about this, we're still flawed in these areas, and we're flawed in many other areas, because we're humans and we are flawed. And our role is to remedy these flaws, or not let them be seen, or take advantage of them to create something new in our own humanity, so that we can move on when our day on earth is over, so that we still have something more to grow on, and become closer to our creator. So all this is just to take you back to when you were a newborn. We breathe, sit, stand, and walk. It's about all you could do as a kid, right? As a little
Yeah.
young child.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I remember too, aside from my son, so I guess after that, I came out to visit one of your facilities out in Minnesota, and that was an interesting visit, in that uh, you and Dennis Thompson and Jimmy Rieger and Dr. J,
Yeah.
uh, they looked at this broken down 50-plus-year-old strongman from New Jersey, and it was pretty. It was funny in a way, but it was sad in a way, because from all the accidents and all the injuries and all the hard training in poor position, not knowing what you're doing, just trying to get from point A to point B the best you can, without any notion about position, and all the compensations that developed from that. I mean, I was broken down mess, and I thought I was at the end of doing presentations and performances in that my chosen area of the strongman world, and yet there was that, like you said, going back to the beginning, going back to positions that I didn't know that I'd ever be able to get in. I had, scar tissue everywhere, pins and screws and wires and all kinds of things. But because of the mindset that developed, and that basic understanding, uh, I've extended to now. I mean, I'm going to be, well, I'm 71 now, and I'm still able to do stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still able. I did a couple of shows this past year, and it's just been amazing. So for parents too, right? Like, for a young person, okay, they don't have to go back in time that far, right, to get back to, you know, uh, being a kid, a little kid in positions, right? They're a 15-year-old to get back to being, to doing infant movements. But an older person, like, Is there any hope for old people?
Yeah, unless you've died, there's always hope. Yeah,
There you go.
there's never an end of the opportunity to improve and change and get better until you're no longer breathing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have and we've had clients from 2 years old to 96 years old, and the results are always the same if the person participates. And if they don't, well, it's like anything else. The system is as invaluable if you don't work it as anything else you could do wrong that's out there. It doesn't matter. Just because while you're with Jay or you're in there with Charles, or I wrote this program, and it doesn't just happen. You have to participate. And the role of a coach is a guide. A coach doesn't tell you what to do. A coach guides you, provides information, and then allows your brain to take that information, first of all, accept it, dissect it, respond to it, and then respond to what happened from executing that action. And those reflex patterns, reflex arcs, and I will disagree with you. You do have to go back to those positions of when you were a young child. You do have to go back if you're 15, if you're 60, if you're 90. Looking at, let's just say I spend a lot of time, and I have spent hour upon hour, because I only sleep 3.5 hours a night. And all my waking hours I spend doing stuff. I don't waste any time. And I watch videotape of the so-called greatest athletes in the world and how they move and what they do, and they're doing it wrong. They just happen to be a little more efficient at something in one area than somebody is at another. But I've only seen a few people that truly had it all together at once, and they became my heroes. So Jesse Owens and Jim Thorpe.
Oh, there you go.
When you watch them move, no matter where we have pictures from, what time in their career, how old they were, it didn't matter. But whenever you actually look at the angles they're at close to perfect angles for a human being to execute movement. And I still, to this day, I watch video clips of Jesse Owens. I watch Jim Thorpe in his mismatched shoes, and all the other things, disadvantages that they had, that we have everything so wonderful today, and yet they were able to do that. But very rarely do I see anybody. I've met a few in my career and had the opportunity to train, but they're few and far between, to be honest. And my goal is to allow everyone to be able to move efficiently, because if you move efficiently, all of your humanity functions the way it's designed to. And when that functions the way it's designed, well, you're never in a bad mood. You don't covet anything of anyone else's. There would be, to me, no crime, no anything, because we'd be satisfied within ourselves. And really, that's the name of the game. If you don't love yourself and feel satisfied within yourself, then nothing's going to happen in the rest of your life with anyone else. And I chose to do this through training, because that's what I was familiar with. That's how I got the ball rolling. So yes, there is a very distinct entry point, and people don't like entering that. I get, people who make $5 million a year, and I have them doing something that a 3-year-old, in the other side of the room is doing, and they're doing it better than them, and they may choose to leave.
Right. Ego.
I had a young girl. This was quite a few years ago. She called me Uncle Jay. Her dad and I got to be really good friends. And I trained her dad for cycling. That's how I met him. I beat him many times in 25 kilometer, 40 kilometer criterium, and he got upset that I was always winning. He thought, well, I train all this and I can't beat this guy. So we got together, and his daughter was a soccer player. And when I met her, she was 3. At 5, she got invited to the Olympic Training Center. And she played with 9 to 13-year-olds, and actually could have made that team. And she came back and came into the gym. Needless to say, she was there every day to train. And she would every once in a while come over to me and say, hey, Uncle Jay, do you want me to go show the big football player how to really do this right? And I said, sure, go ahead. You know what? it upset some people, and they didn't come back. And other people were, oh my God, how can she be doing this? You know, I
Yeah.
lift 50 times more than she does. I run 20 times faster. She's never hurt. She can do it 900 times in a row. I can do it 3 or 4 times in a row. How do I get there? And that's how we got going. And that's kind of the core of people that have stuck with. So, I know you said a lot of times EVO is not for everyone, but it should be. But it's not, because not everybody can accept their frailty, their flaws. That's my job as a guide. That's Charles's job as a guide. That's your job as a guide when you're training people, is to provide the information so their brain recognizes where these problems are and correct them before anything else occurs. We're not going to eliminate compensatory action. It's impossible. We're flawed, we're humans. But what we can do is allow the brain to understand when they occur and then make the correction based on human design. And then we don't see the negativity from those compensatory actions. Or if we do, it's limited quite greatly. That's what training's supposed to be. It's I've had women who were allergic to weights that became state champions, national champion powerlifters. They were allergic to weights. I had families that would come in, husbands and sons, and then, well, can we get our mom in here? She needs to get in shape. She ended up being stronger than they were, and they quit because she was outdoing them many times. I had a powerlifting team, and the only men that were on it was myself and one other guy, and the rest of the 11 were 9 women. And we were all 40 plus years old. And they had no background in this, but it was there. The strength was there. They wanted to lose fat, or I need glutes so I look good in my jeans, or whatever reason it is. I listen, but I really don't
Motivation.
pay attention, because I know what I need those people to accomplish in order to achieve whatever it is they want. And you have to have this baseline level. If you don't, you're going to be this up and down, up and down, up and down. And what happens? Well, we get frustrated. I trained with Jay for 3 months. It doesn't work anymore. I go to Russell and I train for 3 months. It doesn't work anymore. I go train with Jane Doe for 3 months. It doesn't work anymore. Why? Because they got to a point where they weren't willing to help themselves get above that level. And that's what we're supposed to do as guides. So it is for everyone, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, the amount of time that I see people put into their fitness, their personal fitness program, where they break it up into strength and cardio and
Yeah.
flexibility, the amount of hours that people put into these things, and no one can believe how little I work out in
Yeah.
terms of time, right? The time is very focused, right? But it I can do the rest of my life. I don't have to think about these, I got to go so many days, I got to go for so
Yeah.
many hours and all these things, and it's such an efficient way to exercise as well. But yeah, let me throw this at you real quick. Since there's a bunch of chatter going on, uh, talking about the world health. Just saw another podcast. It might creep into the national conversation. It sort of is, in terms of how poor the health is of American children, as well as Americans in general. I mean, it's just it's a crisis.
Yeah.
And so, flashing back real quick to President Kennedy, this is as political as I'm going to get. Uh, he wrote in The Soft American, physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body, it is the basis of dynamic and creative intellectual activity. We know what the Greeks knew, that intelligence and skill can only function at the peak of their capacity when the body is healthy and strong. That hardy spirits, that hardy spirits and tough minds usually inhabit sound bodies. In this sense, physical fitness is the basis of all the activities of our society. And if our bodies grow soft and inactive, if we fail to encourage physical development and prowess, we will undermine our capacity for thought, for work, and for the use of those skills vital to an expanding and complex America. Thus, the physical fitness of our citizens is a vital prerequisite to Americans' realization of its full potential as a nation and to the opportunity of each individual citizen to make full and fruitful use of his capacities.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. And I totally agree with that. That's why I have pipes: physiology, intellect, psychology, emotion, and spirit. One of the things that when we were talking about training kids is parents, they used to come up to me all the time and say, my son, daughter they're getting better grades in school. They're spending more time studying and doing these things. It's the entirety of our being. We can't just lift weights. We can't just run. We can't just study. We can't just play an instrument. It's the totality of everything that God gave us that makes us or allows us, affords us the opportunity to live as this miracle. Now, to me, that's what evolutionary training, EVO training, does. By the way, evolutionary is really what EVO training became. People, too many syllables to say, I don't know. It got shortened to EVO. But it's everything: mind, body, spirit. And if you don't have 100% of every aspect of pipes, or at least apply 100% of each, then you only get what the lowest level of each is, and you go nowhere. You spin your tires. And again, that's what EVO is about. It's never about training for strength or size or speed. Those things just happen because, my son, he's a great example. The school he went to was a small high school. We went there because my nephews went there, and my sister-in-law taught there, and so he wanted to go to school with his family, and so we went there. And he was one of the biggest kids on the team, but he was like me when I was slow. He was the slowest on the team, and he didn't really care to work very hard. And I didn't push any of my kids to do anything. If they asked, then I for sure would help. But if they didn't, then it didn't matter. And just before his senior year, he said, "Dad, I don't want to be the slowest on the team anymore. I don't want to be the weakest on the team. Aren't you embarrassed?" And I said, "No, I love you. You're my son. However you play, you play. It's up to you. However hard you want to work. That's your choice, not mine." And he said, "Well, I don't want to be the slowest. I don't want to be the weakest." I said, "Fine. Then you're going to do everything I say. And we're going to train the way we should be doing it. You're going to eat appropriately. You're going to sleep appropriately. We're going to monitor your dreams, everything, blah, blah, blah." He said, "Okay, I'll do it." Well, we did it for just over 2 months. And when he got there, I was the strength coach of the team. And, so I was doing some testing, but I didn't want to be where Colin was testing so that they couldn't say, well, his dad is helping him out, So I would always be in another area. And about halfway through this testing, one of the coaches came over and said to the coach that I was with, "Hey, you need to come over here. There's something going on." And I said, "What?" And I looked at him, and all the coaches are there, and I was not. Nobody invited me. And so I was watching, and it was Colin that was running. And he ran a 4.6 440. His best 40 before we started was 5:29. He had gained 18 pounds, and he was running so much faster.
In
His
2
long
months?
jump, it's 2 months. Now, we did everything the way Jay Evo wants it done. It isn't Jay's way. It's God's way. It's the human way. We took him back because obviously he was wrought with compensatory action. And all we had to do was get information to his brain where his brain would say, that's inappropriate. I need to change that. Russell, I think when I met you with Dennis and Dr. J and Jimmy, well, that was a fun group,
It
and
was.
good times, fun group of people, knowledgeable people, and just wanted to help people. And we had a lot of people that would come in with, had knee surgery or shoulder surgery or hip surgery, ankle problems. And mostly in the lower body, we saw this where they would limp, or the upper body, the side would not do what it's supposed to do. So I created a protocol with the modality to allow the brain to understand it was limping on the other side, on the good side. And when the brain understood that, it went, whoa, I need to correct what's happening over here. It recognized what was going on the other side of the body. And quickly, the limp was no longer visible. Yet the person had no idea they weren't limping anymore until you videotaped them and they went, oh, wow. That person with a shoulder, they couldn't raise their arm above here, right? And while I'm working with them, their arm's going all the way up. And they said, no, I can't. It's not happening. So I took him in the bathroom where the mirror was. I said, now put your arm. I can't. I'll just do it. And their arm went all the way up and they would cry in tears, but they couldn't see it. But their brain recognized, made the corrections so that they could do those things. And that's what keeps us, Russell, from being whatever it is we want to achieve, whether it's writing poetry, playing an instrument, singing, mountain climbing, playing football, being a strong man, being Helene and running ridiculous distances. Did you see her last accomplishment? I know you've had her on the podcast, and I've listened to all your podcasts, but Helene, she just finished one. You know how long we trained for it?
No.
2 weeks.
Oh, gosh.
She didn't do running. She wasn't even able to come to the gym because she was at home. She was in Vegas or Nevada, somewhere there. And so we did it all with the modality. And she had she has continuous bouts of these cancer limitations. I won't go into any detail, but she was sick while she was doing this and yet just went out there and accomplished this run. She texted me when she was finished and said, Jay, I could run this 3 or 4 times in a row. I'm not tired. I'm not sick. I didn't lose a ton of weight. I feel good. I'm going to go about everyday life. That's what it's supposed to be. Somebody who's diseased like that, and we don't need to go into her history, but I think people can find out a little on the podcast if they go back and listen. But she's been nothing but a cancer patient for years and years and years. And we're talking serious, where they gave up on her. She was going to die. I talked to her once a week. I wouldn't go to the hospital because they were going to make me wear a mask, and I wouldn't do that. So I would talk to her, and we never talked about how do we get over the effects of the cancer, and more importantly, the effect of the chemo, which is instant death, And we never talked about that. We just talked about how she was going to accomplish her next event. And we strategized how she would run, where she would accelerate and then coast and do all these different things. And as well as I do, she finished that. In less than 10 weeks later, she went out and did the bridge competition. She still had a hole in her chest.
Right, for the port.
Now, That's what humans... Helene is no better than you, no worse than me, no better than me. I'm no better than anyone else. We're all the same. It's what do we use? To me, Helene is one of the greatest athletes I've ever trained. Does she do things that are against what I might think? Of course. We all do. No one lives to anyone's expectations. They live to their own. And it's up to you and I as the guide to work within that and make it happen for them so they can change other people's lives in how they display it. That's how we become great as a society, as human beings, is one person at a time. Again, to me, that's what EVO does. Listening to you talk about your experience and your son's experience. I remember when your son came here, I wasn't very... I didn't say very many good things about him, when he first started. I critiqued, but that's my job. I have to know what's not right before I can make a plan to remedy, or at least get the information to his brain to remedy it, because I don't do anything. I think the other day you mentioned something in an email to me about, well, I cured myself. I did not. I gave information to my brain to allow my brain to figure out what to do. Fortunately for me, the injuries that I had were only brain injuries. Now, that's pretty severe in some cases. Some people think that, I've had some extreme brain problems. But I couldn't move, and because of this trauma. And it could be disease, it can be injury, it could be surgery, it could be from eating wrong, it can be emotional trauma. I've worked with ADD, ADHD, or whatever they're calling it today, and Guillain-Barré, and MS. I have several clients right now that had, what do they call it, RSDS. Okay, I think now they shortened it to RSD. I have a kid who came in, I think he was 10 at the time, and he was in pain 24 hours a day. His parents were spending thousands of dollars a week on medications. They couldn't go on vacation. They couldn't leave the house because he couldn't go anywhere. He came in on crutches. And, the only reason he came in is his mother did not want him to come in. But I trained his father. His father was an NFL player. And his mother said, well, what does a strength coach know that's going to help our son get over this? We've seen the best doctors in the world. We use the best medications. And he said, look, nothing's working. Why don't we just ask Jay? Maybe he knows something. Well, this kid today, it took, I think, less than 9 months. Okay, he was off his crutches within a week. And he was socially behind, we'll say. Now he is a social butterfly. He plays football, he plays basketball, he plays baseball. His father is very large. His father is 6'7", and when he was in his prime, 314 pounds. And when I met the son, he was not very tall. He was like 5'10", and now he's almost 6'5", 258 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
He's strong. He's fit. He's all those things. And after the first day, he screamed, he cried, and his mother, did what mothers do. Oh, it's okay. Jay, don't hurt him. And so, I thought, well, they'll never come back. And they didn't for 3 days. Now, Charles got a call from the mother, and the mother said, I don't know what Jay did. He's not on his crutches anymore. He's walking from his bedroom to the kitchen. He's walking from his bedroom to the bathroom. When can we come in again? And that's how that started. And now we have other RSDS patients. Dennis and I worked with RSDS and Guillain-Barré and MS on a regular basis, and the results were almost always the same. And we had a woman we worked with, had MS for most of her life. And she couldn't drive. She very rarely got out of bed unless someone was there to pick her up, put her in the wheelchair. And we met her in Minneapolis. And, Dennis did his thing with her and then said, all right, Jay, she's yours. I can't do anything more right now. And they were in the hotel, in Apple Valley, right down the street. And she came in the next day. Her husband was a physician, by the way. And her husband told us how much crap we were spewing, and we should be, be chastised for trying to give people false hope. And so anyhow, we did a couple days. They were in the hotel. It was over the weekend. We didn't see her on the Sunday. And Monday came in, and her husband said, she took 25 steps down the hallway. She hasn't taken a step in years. What the heck is going on here? I don't believe in this. I don't believe it can work, but I just saw it with my own wife. So long story short, she ended up being able to drive, take care of herself. She had her own, POV with her. Because, once you have something like that, you've got to keep up on everything. It doesn't just, we don't eliminate the disease. We just allow the brain to understand how to overcome compensation. And she called one day and said, Jay, I want you to take the machine back. And I was flabbergasted, right? And I said, okay, what's wrong? And she said, my children never come to visit me anymore. Nobody brings me food. I have to cook everything for myself. I have to drive myself everywhere. This is not the life I want. I'm used to what I had before.
Oh, gosh.
Now, isn't that very interesting? And that's what we're talking about, where EVO should be for everyone, or something like EVO. I'm not saying I know everything, because I don't. My goal is to know as much as I can about everything that I do as possible before I die. But I don't know everything. But what I do know, I've mastered. That's how I make it work. And then I learn by training you, training your son, training Helene, training others. I learn, never stop. So EVO, evolutionary. You continue to adapt and change every moment of every day. Russell, that's why we're talking today, because that's what parents want for their children. They want them to be, how shall we say, healthy, wealthy, and wise. You have to have a powerful brain. You have to have a powerful mind. You have to be powerful within your spirit, within your soul, as well as your nervous system and your organs and everything else. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
real training gives you, or affords you the opportunity. It doesn't give it to you. You have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's an action for sure.
It is. It
So,
is. It's
all right, so let's just hit on a couple things real quick. Just you mentioned diet a couple of times. What, in your view, um, I know what my view of diet is. I was just curious about what yours is.
But we try not to ever use the word diet.
Well,
It's
what you
just
eat,
eating,
right?
and the
Yeah,
first thing you need to do is you need to understand or make a decision. Are you going to live to eat or eat to live? That's a decision everyone has to make on their own. Um, Once you've made that decision, then there's parameters to work within. But here's the way I promote eating. And I know there'll be people who listen to this that are dietitian, nutritionists, and they're going to balk at it and say, this guy's an idiot.
yeah,
I don't really care. Like you, I'm old, and all I care about is helping people live to be the miracle they were born to be. That's all I
cool.
care about anymore. If it upsets someone, I don't care. If someone doesn't like me, I care. If someone loves me, wants to shower me with accolades, I don't care. I just go, great, okay. Because that's not what it's about. It's not me. The
Mm,
opportunity to learn what I learned was given to me by God. I had to be in an accident because of that and have problems. I finally figured it out. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, I guess. Okay. But
right.
here's the way that I would promote eating: eat all of the red meat you want, spread it into 4 times per day, not having any red meat 6 hours before you go to bed. Eat 3 times as many vegetables as you can stand to look at. Supplement with fruits 1 or 2 days a week. Leave 3 to 4 hours between every meal.
Hmm.
That's it.
Cool. I got. I like that. I got to a point, training people over the years, and uh, eating systems, and there's all these things you can do to try. People want to drop weight, blah blah blah. But I just got to a point over the last few years. It's got to be the way God created it. I don't care, whatever you want to emphasize. If it's the way God made it and it's in its form that God made it in, right? Then we're good. I mean, we've ruined the food chain. I mean, we've done so many things. And your mention of beef. I mean, the cow. Anybody that studies the cow and how miraculous a creation
Yeah.
that cow is and what it can provide, and anyway, but yeah, I don't want to get too jacked up on it, but
Russell, before I forget, I'm old and have long term, short term memory loss. So, before I forget, your nervous systems control everything. And if you have a healthy, plastic, virile, dynamic nervous set of systems, okay, you can overcome any of the way they produce our food, make our food, or what they give us. You can overcome that. But you got to have this healthy, plastic, virile, dynamic set of nervous systems. That's what EVO, the first thing we do, because that's what a young child has. They're never hurt. They're never sick. They're never anything. They run, they jump, they fall, they sustain all these things, but they never have negative ramifications. That's part of getting to this point where then whatever it is you have to put into your body. Let's say that somebody makes something we have to. It's the only way we can get this in our body. Okay, and it's not great for us. We can overcome the negatives by having healthy plastic virile dynamic nervous system. God gave us that ability to overcome everything and anything. When you have that set of nervous systems that overcomes everything and can accomplish anything, that's when you realize the miraculous human. You can run, you can jump, you can eat, you have solid waste after every single meal or snack. You can break down whatever. You don't get bloated, you don't get any of these negative things. And that's important.
yeah.
That is very important. And people Parents, you need to understand that. You don't just send little Johnny or Jane into the weight room to train and
No.
say, well, they need to get stronger. They need to get faster. They need to become an efficient human being. Their organs, every system of their body needs to work in harmony with each other. And then when that happens, little Johnny and Jane jump high, run fast, and do all of these other things. They think more clearly. They're better human beings. They're great citizens, whatever we want to say. That's where it begins. But, Russell, for the sake of people making money, well, we have people, I can train Russell, I can train you to run faster. Even at 70, I can put you on a speed program. I can put you on this program. I can put you on a weight loss. I can put you on a weight gain, a muscle gain, fat loss. It's all really the same. If you're healthy inside your heart, your brain, your soul, your spirit, then you're healthy everywhere, and you can go up in weight, down in weight. You can do whatever you want with your body, because that's the miraculousness, if that's a word, of our gift from birth. That's
Wow.
cool. That's what EVO teaches. I want you to come in, Russell, for a year or 2 years or whatever it may be, and then never see me again. Because that means now you know how to do this on your own. You can then give it to everyone else you can come in contact with that's interested. That's what it's all about. But everybody wants, well, Jay, tell me this, tell me that. I get offers all the time. I had a guy fly out here a few months ago. I have a gym here and I have a gym here, and I want you to be part of it. Well, what part of you? I just want you to write the programs. It isn't the program. It's what makes up the program, the order that it's in. What? I don't know if we want to get into this, but everything we do resonates at a different frequency. When we're injured, we have a certain resonance in that area in our brain when we're thinking, or when we're emotional, or when we're emotionally distraught, or physically distraught, or diseased, or whatever. We have all these different vibrations, and they tend to be lower. We need to get ourselves back to this high vibration. If we do things that allow that, wow. Now, the movements I've chosen, Russell, and for parents of kids that are out there, well, my little Johnny and Jane's coach says we need to power clean and we need to do this and we need to do that. Well, you know what? They could be very good exercises if done appropriately. But some of those things take years to master.
Yes, sir.
What I do takes days to master if you really want to. Then you can get everything out of it you want. So it isn't the exercise. It's what's here and what's here while you're doing the exercise, and then everything happens. There's a point with iso extremes, and everyone mocks them and says, well, I do iso extremes, so I know everything Jay does. Okay. At 3 minutes, there's something freaking amazingly awesome that happens. And only 2 people that I have ever met in my life understood that. One of them I married, and one of them has now been working with me for 25 years. I think it's 25. If not, it's really close. Okay. They understood that. But over all these years, with all the people that I've ever, no one ever. Because what's really cool, and I put it out on a little podcast, and I don't know if Charles has put it on our YouTube thing yet, but we create such a high vibration in our right brain that you're actually removed from your being. You're this spirit, kind of like an all-knowing, all-seeing. You feel and see everything. It is so amazing. That's what iso extremes afford the opportunity. But nobody ever does it appropriately enough to get to that point. But when you do, oh my God. And one other thing I want to say to parents, and it's really important. Your kids go out and they train and they come home and I had a good bench day, or, oh man, I really feel my legs. Man, I'm really feeling my hamstrings. I must have done 1,000 glute hams today. We are built in such a way, Russell, and I know you know this, but I directed it to you because you're doing the podcast.
Yes, sir.
We are built in such a way that if we do it right, we feel absolutely nothing. When you bench press and you do it right, you feel nothing. In your career as an athlete, and parents can think about that, and their kids can think about this, because at some point we all reach this where we've done something beyond what we knew we could do or what others thought we could do. And your coach, your teammate, your spouse, your whoever came up to you and said, Russell, how did you do that? And the answer is always the same. I don't know. Right? We don't know. It happened. That's when we get this extreme vibration in the right brain, and it happens without knowing. We all know how to walk. We all know how to run if we've run before, or watch someone run, or ride a bike, or lift a weight. We already know how to do it. And then they make us go practice it, some maximally with velocity. Position is not even talked about. And any of those things, and you might go, oh, I got a better lift today. I did more than I used to. But you never demonstrate it again. The cool thing is you want to do it day after day after day after day on command. No preparation.
without
Helene,
without
Helene can
belts
go
and
run.
wraps and
Oh,
straps and all these other accompanying devices so
well,
that
they
you
all
can
make
say
money,
I
Russell.
lifted more, but I got to do it. I have to put on all my gear first. What are you
Exactly.
talking about?
Bring Jesse Owens back. Bring Jim Thorpe back, and they'll dominate today just like they did because of humans aren't better today. I don't believe that at all. In some aspects, they may have raised the level, but humans overall are not better today. Technology has allowed humanity to take advantage of their frailty and have some increased performance. But we are nowhere close to what God intended for us as our ability to perform and recover. The closest I've ever had, to be honest with you, I've had three, and the closest one, only because she's been diseased for all these years, is Helene. How much more could be taken from her than cancer and chemo have taken from her? And yet she still performs at a level that other people only go, oh, you're amazing, Helene. I could never do that. The lesson from Helene is not in the running. The lesson is that she can do that. It doesn't matter how far she runs, how many times. That's not what's to be admired. What's to be admired is what's here.
Oh yeah.
That is so important and so key. When your son came out, it took us a week or two to get him to believe that he was a miracle, to have him understand he could do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And he didn't need to spend hours upon hours. I'm sure he told you how much time per day we spent. And it wasn't a tenth of what he normally does. And you can achieve these results. It's in your participatory level. How
When he
much do
was
you put
out
in?
there 2 months, 2 workouts a day, and he was working in between, eating as much as he could possibly eat. The heaviest weight he lifted, he's told me, was 8 pounds.
Yeah.
He went from 195 to 204, and he came back like I'd never seen him before. I mean, or since actually. He's like, it was amazing. It was amazing. That focus time. So yeah,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate your time today, Jay. You want to tell us one quick story about why a guy of your age drives motorcycles at such a high rate of speed?
Yeah,
Or
Russell, it's really easy. It's really easy. Let's just say that because of those brain injuries that I recognized probably about 28 years ago, I really figured that out, the brain injuries. I have challenges to work within today. And I chose to do something that if you do it wrong, you die. Sometimes, like this is how my right hand moves. That's not very good for getting on the brake at 231 miles an hour. And if you squeeze too hard, you flip over and you die. If you don't squeeze enough, you run off the end and you can decapitate yourself because a lot of barbed wire at the end of these runways and you die. Um, if you mess up in any way, if you push the handlebar a little too far, the wheel tucks underneath you, you die. If you hit the rear brake too hard, the back end goes out from underneath you and you die. That's how I test my nervous system. That's how I test how efficient my training is for me. I'll do it until my last breath because that is my test. Of course, I enjoy it because I enjoy overcoming obstacles. I have no feeling in my left hip all the way to my foot. I have no feeling in my right leg, knee down. I have absolutely no feeling in my head. My left hand, okay, here you go. Here's clutch hand. It's really not easy to pull in the clutch when you work like that. And yet I can go out there and I've done 217 and a half mile from 0 to 217 to well 20 mile an hour to make a 180-degree turn to get out facing the other way on the runway to go back to the pit area in 21 seconds. Okay. Now, if you
That's
don't
the
do
nervous
everything
system
right,
thing.
death is a real thing, or
Yeah.
being severely injured is real. That's why I do it. I chose to do something that I was challenged by life. I enjoy living, Russell. I enjoy that. And I want to do it to its fullest every moment of every day that I have. That's how I know that I'm on the right track and I can sit here and do a podcast with you and then go write programs for 6 or 8 hours.
God
That's why I
bless.
do it.
All right. Better man than me on that level. I fell off bad one time, and that was enough for me.
Yeah,
but I do other things. I do
that's
other
right.
things.
We all apply it in our own way, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
that's what it's supposed to be.
Yes, sir. Well, that's a wrap. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode and you got some takeaways that you can use. More information on Jay will be in the notes. Please share this with your friends. And don't forget all my stuff at russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 13-year-old, check out our 60-day transformational interactive video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. It is amazing. It will equip and encourage parents and kids. Yes, Top Secrets of Success is very cool. Get on our email list. And in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong. Then you can all go and make it a great day. Bye for now.